Yeah, this is pretty sketchy as frig, so don't try this at home. So that tidies up the engine compartment a little bit, saves a little bit of weight, makes a little bit of room. Oh my goodness. There used to be a heater box there on the passenger side, but I took it off. There's the heater box there. It's really rusty. It's got the blower motor on it, and there's a resistor in here, but I broke it. So yeah, that's the original piece that I took off. Okay, I drew a circumference all around, and I lined it up on this edge. Try not to waste too much material, and line it up here. The checker plate seems to be in better condition up top, but if I line it up down here, I have to make less cuts, I think, and save material up there. Something like that. I marked most of the holes except for these two down here because there's plastic keepers in them. Popped out those two keepers, those ugly keepers out of the bottom of the ugly heater box, and that allowed me to mark the positions. So I marked all the bolts all the way around, and that should be it. Now I gotta cut it out. I'm going to use the circular saw, same as I did on the fuel access door. Okay, so I made it this far with the circular saw. Yeah, this is pretty sketchy as frig, so don't try this at home. But yeah, it works. So I need to do one line here. I could probably do that with a plunge cut, but they're pretty sketchy too. So I'll probably finish this with a reciprocating saw. Oh my goodness, yuck. The alignment on the bolt holes is not 100% perfect, so I'll go one size bigger with the stepper bit. That'll give me a little bit of wiggle room for the bolts, make sure they're all lined up appropriately, and then I'll just silicone it and put it on. I probably won't paint it. I painted the other one black, but probably won't paint this one. You could polish it if you really wanted to, or sand the edges down. I'm just building one block off plate, and I traced it out from the factory heater box. So I'm just duplicating and emulating the factory heater box. But I'm pretty sure that since there's only two holes, you could probably do two small block off plates if you wanted to. But this is simple, easy to emulate and trace it out. I've been picking away at the doors and door pads, waiting for the new hinge kit to come in because they got the wrong hinge pins the first time. So I'm waiting for the big ones to come in, the upper ones, and they're like riveted. They're not the typical replacement type like the bottom ones are. But I think I decided I'm going to keep the power windows. That the new doors have power windows, so I think I'm going to keep them. But I'll have to install a window switch somewhere. I know the new doors look kind of ratty, but they're solid. They're more solid than the old ones underneath on the bottom side. I know they look okay, but they're not okay. So these ones have power windows. There's your power window motor right there. Maybe power windows would be nice. It's only 2 wires here and 2 wires to put a switch in here somewhere. I've had to do that before on the 87. I had to put a switch in the console, so that's not a big deal. It's only 2 wires power in and 2 wires out on each side. So there was a little bit of a lip here in this round part where the motor takes in the air. So the lip stuck out maybe 1/4 inch. I made a couple relief cuts because of the way it was bent all the way around. I made a couple relief cuts and sort of bent them in a little bit so I can get the plate on flush, because it was a protrusion that stuck out about 1/4 inch. And then I painted it with some rust paint just in case the paint's damaged, and where I made relief cuts there could be bare metal there, so I just painted it with some rust paint. I painted the plate as well. I wasn't really sure about painting it at first because aluminum is a little bit reflective and there's high temperatures under the hood here. But I decided to paint it. I think it's going to look a little bit better painted. And also, that's the same thing I did when I made the trap door in the back. I painted it, so might as well. That's going to be weight reduction right there. There's an electric motor on there, big steel housing, and the piece I'm putting on is a smaller piece of aluminum, which is lighter weight. No electric motor. That's going to be some weight reduction. I think if I clean this up, clean some of this undercoating up and paint the engine compartment black, it might turn out alright. There's some more weight reduction. Went under the passenger side dash. That's where the heater box is. So this is outside of the firewall and this is inside. So I went under the dash inside and pulled out the heater core. And yeah, this is a copper one. They used to be brass back in the day, brass copper. So it's a heavy one. There's probably 4 pounds there. And this is probably another 5 pounds. So there's almost 10 pounds right there. Yes. Took out the spare donut spare tire. So that thing was probably, I don't even know, probably 25 pounds, 30 pounds, I'm not even sure. It's substantial, that's for sure. And the jack, that's probably another 10 pounds. So last time I had the 87 on the road, I had roadside assistance for an extra $100 a year or something like that. When my nephew wanted to install the subwoofer in his car, in the spare tire compartment. I said, what if you get a flat tire or something, you're gonna need it. He said, no, I got roadside assistance, we're good. So I trimmed those humps off and painted it black, and I put some high temperature silicone all the way around it. I didn't want to use these rusty bolts again, so I found some with the same thread and they're a little bit less rusty, so I changed the bolts. Might have to put some washers on it, but for now they're holding it on so the silicone can set up. I'm using nuts and bolts down at the bottom too, and there's nuts inside just for the bottom two only. Yeah, turned out pretty good. It's a lot lighter. I figure this only weighs maybe a pound, and the stuff I took off probably weighs about 8 pounds if you include the blower motor, heater box, and heater core. These are some of the pieces I removed when I put the heat delete in, or the block off plate, the heat delete plate. So there's one cover off of that goes under the dash, so I may or may not put that back on. It doesn't really weigh much. And here's this is an extension off the passenger side vent. It has the old vents under the dash. This is an extension off of that, so I took that off. Heater core and heater box and blower motor. That's just some of the stuff I removed, and most of that I'm gonna do away with. This one here I may or may not put it back on just for a cover. This is the passenger side vent, and there was an extension, like an elbow on it, so I took that extension elbow off. That's the heater box, the interior part of it, and I took the cover off here, and I removed the heater core. You can see the two holes, those are for the hoses for the heater core, so I'll have to seal those up. I suppose I could have made a bigger block off plate that would cover that as well, but that's okay. I'll find another way to seal that off. And most of the heater stuff is going to be obsolete to me now. I'll see how much stuff I can remove and how much weight I can remove from stuff that I don't need, such as the heater, since it's deleted now. There is an entire heater box that can come out, but it's behind the dash, so I don't really want to remove the dash. But yeah, that's up to your discretion, I guess. And there's some holes here in the dash that allow access to get at the top bolts up here. So you can get the top bolts through these two holes here. So originally I had traced out the factory heater box, and then there was some bumps where the AC condenser would go, and it was kind of ugly, so I cut that off, and there's another bump here. I didn't really like the shape of it, so I just sort of straightened them out a bit. But tracing the heater box might not be the best way, especially, like I said, if you want to cover the heater core or remove the heater core. I did this before I removed the heater core. I made the plate. I didn't paint it until later, but I just recently removed the heater core, so you could make a bigger plate or a different shape plate. I think just a little bit bigger would probably do it, and it would cover those holes as well. But I know I can find several ways to block those holes. I've sort of been working on doing a door swap and a power window swap and stuff, and the car never had power windows originally, It had crank windows. So the power window cars, they have a wire that goes in here in between the door and the hinge. But the cars that don't have power windows, like the early cars like this and the base models, they have like a round grommet and it just pops in the hole. And it's hard to see it, but it's just a round grommet and it's just a cover and it just covers the hole. So maybe I can get a couple of those pop-in grommets and pop them in the firewall. Otherwise I'll just seal it up on the inside or the outside. It looks like a super cool race car with no headliner and no door pads, but I'm actually working on that. So I thought about keeping the headliner out, but if you put your hand on the roof on a sunny day, it's hot. And even inside, if you put your hand in here, it's hot. So I'm going to be doing the Dynamat or the reflective underlay stuff. And that also helps to make the car quieter also, like for road sounds and stuff. So I'll do that and I'll put the headliner back in, probably recover it. I'm hoping the original door pads can go on the replacement doors. So maybe later I'll delete the entire heater box. There's a bigger heater box under the dash, so maybe later I'll remove that. But for now, that's just a little bit of weight reduction, tidy up the engine compartment a little bit, and it really separates the hot air that's under the engine compartment from the air that's in the cabin here. So that tidies up the engine compartment a little bit, saves a little bit of weight, makes a little bit of room.